Afternoon peeps, how are you all doing? Good, I hope. It's a bit of a miserable day today, isn't it? Can't wait for spring to come in and start to warm the place up. It's getting a bit warmer than it was yesterday, but we've got a few winds, that's all. Anyway, what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about UN peacekeeping, and this is a follow-up from Keith's post, old Let's Tab 59, about peacekeeping in Ukraine. I did mention on his post that I would mention the UN tours that I did. And the first one was UNFICYP, as it was called. Yeah, United Nations Forces in Cyprus. And this all came about after the invasion by Turkey of Cyprus. Yeah, so obviously, if you didn't know, Cyprus is split up now. The north end of the island is the Turkish side, south end of the island is the Greek side. And obviously the Turks and the Greeks couldn't agree, yeah, which is normal nowadays, isn't it? No one can agree on anything. And Turkey invaded Cyprus, yeah, in 1971. So of course they parachuted in. Funnily enough, I saw the video when I was at the United Nations workshops in Cyprus of the Turkish paras dropping in behind Nicosia Airport, because the UN workshops was behind the actual airport. Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, so they parachuted in, and again, after all the battles and everything, the UN got involved. Now, this is my personal view. I'm not saying it's right, but to me, the United Nations is one of the most ineffective organisations going. It really is, especially when it comes down to things like peacekeeping. We've had various issues over the years with the UN going into places, sending people in, and being totally ineffective. Like I say, I went out there in 1980 and I got sent out with the transport squadron that I was attached to at the time as the vehicle electrician to go into the UN workshops. Now, yes, it did end up, for me, being what most people call a sunshine tour. Mainly because of the fact that while I was there was no job for me. We had civilians working in the UN workshops. I've been taken out as a vehicle electrician, and obviously we had to employ the civilians or keep them busy. And basically I was sitting there twiddling my thumbs. Prior to going out to Cyprus, I got heavily involved in skydiving. And after sitting on the beach for a couple of weekends, I realised I was just wasting my time. So I ended up going to the parachute centre in Decalia. Started jumping there. I got talking with the chief instructor, a bloke called Mick Winwood. Explained to him that I was bored, I was doing nothing in Nicosia, and he asked, how would you like to try and get yourself down here at the staff at a parachute centre? So I jumped at the chance. Spoke to the admin officer. He agreed that, you know, I was sitting there doing nothing. I might as well be employed somewhere else. So he sent me down to be a member of the staff at the parachute centre. And the first thing I ended up doing was just packing parachutes. Yeah, which was good because it meant I got my packing certificate and everything. And then I progressed from there. So for about 4 months of my time in Cyprus, I was at the parachute centre. But if you didn't know about how the island's divided, there are 2 roads that run east to west. Now, one runs along the very south of the island, and literally some sort of from Paphos through to Larnaca. And the other one is known as the UN Road, and it's only to be used by the UN. Now, none of us were armed in the 80s. The only armament we had, and I remember going down going down the UN Road with a Canadian bloke called Mick Hunter from Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, or Please Protect Canada's Little Idiots as we called them. And the only thing we had in our Jeep was 2 baseball bats. No weapons, 2 baseball bats. So myself and Mick were going down the UN Road, and suddenly we got a Turkish soldier stood in the road flagging us down. Now he's armed and we're not. So Mick stopped the Jeep. The Turkish soldier said to us, "Come with me," which we duly did. Now, if any of you have ever seen the film Midnight Express, yeah, you'll understand we were a bit concerned. But this Turkish officer took us up onto the ridge that looked over to the other road that went east to west. And he just looked at us and said, "We take that tomorrow." Well, I wasn't going to argue with him, neither was Mick. Yeah, and to be honest, I reckon they could have taken it. Yeah. What we later found out was the unit from the Turkish army that was there was what they class as the penal battalion. They were all criminals that instead of going to jail, they were being used to bolster the Green Line, as it's known, yeah, in Cyprus. So, like I say, we were there, blue berets, brassards, the blue cravat if you wanted to wear it. Yeah, but totally ineffective because we couldn't do anything. All we had to do was sit there and just monitor. Now, while I was at the parachute centre in what was called Pergamos Camp, I found out the reason that the Green Line literally ran about 150 yards behind the accommodation block was because the Turks had pushed forward and got as far as Pergamos Camp. And then when they got there, apparently because the Gurkhas were stationed there at the time, they stopped and didn't want to come any further because the Gurkhas weren't part of the United Nations, they were part of the Eastern Sovereign Base Area, yeah, in Dakalia. But the Turks suddenly decided, we're not going to take the Gurkhas on, yeah, we're going to stop here. And like I say, I used to speak to the Turkish soldiers from my veranda of my accommodation. Good bunch of lads, used to have a right laugh with them, you know. They always used to ask us for things like cigarettes and so on. I didn't smoke, but I didn't mind buying them some cigarettes. And it kept the peace. But we were a totally ineffective unit as the UN. Like I say, I was at the parachute centre jumping out of planes all day. I had one incident where I've been given what they call a bum spot. They let me out of the plane too early and I ended up landing on the Turkish side. And I realised I was on the wrong side of the line, picked up my parachute and started walking back towards the fence to the parachute centre, and suddenly I've got 2 Turkish soldiers pegging it across the field towards me. So I'm absolutely bricking myself. Yeah. So I started a quick step and run. I got to the fence and realised by the time I'd managed to throw my kit over and everything, yeah, they were going to be on me. And as it was, when they did get to me, one of them threw my parachute over the fence and the other one threw me over the fence. yeah, because it was obviously too much aggravation for them. But here we are, like I say, they invaded in 1971. Here we are in 2025, and that green line still exists in Cyprus. Yeah, so all those years later on, there we are, still peacekeeping, as they call it. Now, I honestly don't know what the rules are now for the UN in Cyprus, whether the guys are armed or not, but like I say, in 1980 we weren't armed at all. So the next time I deployed under the UN flag was Bosnia. Now, those of us that have been to Bosnia and served there under the UN, I did 3 tours. My last tour I started off as UN, changed to IFOR. But the fact was, we were there as UN soldiers, peacekeeping. And if you know about Bosnia, there was 3 warring factions. Yeah, the Croats, the Serbs, and the Muslims. And we never knew who was supposed to be the good guys. Yeah, because it changed on a daily, even weekly basis. Because it always depended on who the diplomats were talking to. So at one time you'd be keeping an eye on what the Muslims were doing, other days it'd be the Croats, other days it'd be the Serbs. And the whole idea of the UN force in Bosnia, or former Yugoslavia, because it was known as UNPROFOR, was to make sure that the food convoys were supposedly getting to the displaced people within the region. Now, we all know that that food convoy was never getting anywhere near them. Yeah, the people were being starved, people were being slaughtered, various things happened, whereby even the Dutch UN, yeah, at Srebrenica were overrun and ended up surrendering because they were outnumbered. Now, a lot of people, yeah, condemned those Dutch soldiers for actually surrendering. I'm sorry, if you're overrun in the way that they were, yeah, you've got no choice. Yeah, there's no way that they could have fought their way out of there. They had to give in. And like I say, I did 3 tours in Bos. Last one being under Grapple 7, deployed into initially the contract factory in Croatia. But as being the, bear with me guys, I've got a lot of dogs here. Hey love, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Hey. But yeah, we started off as UN, and there were various issues that I came across in my time in the 3 tours. One in a place called Begonia, and I turned up because I used to have to travel around the theatre, yeah, as the Staff Sergeant vehicle electrician, just to monitor that everything was going okay. I turned up in Begonia on my way at the time to a place called Kiselyak, and those guys that are on here that may have served out in Kiselyak, you'll remember it well. But I turned up in Begonia and there was a warrior that pulled into the yard, and the blokes got out of the vehicle and you could see there was something not quite right. And it turned out that they'd had to go and do a clearance of a house and they found some atrocities. Now I got speaking to their colour sergeant in the mess that night as I was having dinner, and he explained to me that his lads wanted to go down the road and deal with the unit that had actually committed these atrocities, but they weren't allowed to, because we weren't there to protect the people, we were there to protect the food convoys to go to the people. But as I say, we all knew full well then food convoys weren't getting to them. So that was in Begonia. My last tour, like I say, we were in, started off in the contract factory in Split, and then we changed over to I4. And myself and my OC had to go up to Sipovo to take over the factory that we were going to be occupying. Now the rules of engagement changed, due to the fact that we were now a NATO force, an implementation force known as I4. And I'll never forget, we turned up at the factory, having been told that the previous occupants would have dispersed, and they hadn't. So we arrived with the interpreter, and this Bosnian officer came out spouting off in whatever language, and we were getting it interpreted for us, and basically they were saying we'll go when we're ready. And my OC told me to go and get the warrior, bring it up and point it through the front door. And he said to the interpreter, right, explain this to him. My staff sergeant's going to get the warrior. I've got a chain gun on this. He said, I'll clear the building myself. Suddenly, the Bosnian army didn't want to know. They were given, I think it was 20 minutes, the OC said, and they were packed up and gone in 15. But then we go on to looking at what's happening now in Ukraine. And Stan was on about going out there and doing a peacekeeping sort of role. Right, first off, we haven't got the manpower in the British Army at the moment to take on another tour such as a peacekeeping role in another foreign country. Because the big problem is that you've got now, is our British Army is so depleted, and if you go by the fact that a lot of the guys are unfit to fight, you're not going to have the rulement tours that you should have. Like I say, Bosnia for us was 6-month tours at a time, so you'd come out, another unit would go in. But at the moment we can't even supply guys for normal roles. So for us to go into Bosnia, to go into Ukraine and try and carry out a peacekeeping tour in Ukraine, I personally think is the biggest mistake that could ever happen. And again, we're talking politicians that have got no idea what they're talking about, do they? Guys at the moment are deployed out in Estonia, Macedonia. What are you going to do? Pull them from them areas? I don't think so. We keep promising the Ukrainians that we're going to do this, that and the other, and we don't do it. And now we've got good old Mr. Trump in there stirring the pot. Not only is he backing away from NATO, he believes that the Americans shouldn't be so involved in NATO. Well, that's fine, in my eyes. Don't want to be part of NATO, then go. It's the same as the UN, and I'll put in as my comment in the post that Keith put. When have you ever seen American forces serve under a blue beret and UN flag? Never. It's never happened. And yet they are one of the 5 for the UN Council. But they're not willing to put their guys in a position whereby they're going to get shot at, and not be able to return fire because the UN mandates. The UN got involved for the first Gulf War as well, back in 1991. We went in as a coalition force, to liberate Kuwait. Now the briefing that we received before we went through the breach, into Iraq, was to take plenty of bottled water, because the water system and the sewage system in Baghdad was buggered. So of course we loaded up with everything that we could. A good job we did, actually, because the POWs we took. But once we'd got into Kuwait, ousted the Iraqi forces from Kuwait and got to the Basra High Road, suddenly the UN decided that's as far as we're going. Now, if you watch things about the Gulf War, you'll find old Stormy Norman, he wanted to finish the job off. I think a lot of us did as well. If we're going to do this right, let's do it right. But what we did, we allowed Saddam to stay in power. And again, atrocities happened there with the Kurds and so on, after we'd liberated Kuwait. So again, the UN have been involved in all of these. Rwanda, another one that they got involved in. Totally ineffective organisation. But the thing is, I read today about they're looking at 30,000 troops, to go into Ukraine, hopefully with the aid of Germany, France and every other European nation. But there's a lot of them are saying we're not getting involved in that. It's nothing to do with us. So again, it looks like Britain is going to get lumbered with the lion's share. And I honestly believe that what we ought to start doing is actually bolstering our forces and making sure that we can defend our shores. Because the way things are going now, it's a very worrying time. You've now got Mr. Trump spouting off. He's supposedly having words with Putin. Do you think Putin's going to take any notice? I honestly don't. That's it, And if Putin doesn't listen, what's Trump going to do then? Is he going to deploy American forces in Ukraine? He says he's not. Apparently he's sick and tired of paying for this war. But like with all wars, the only people that benefit from it are the people that are selling the arms. So these people, if the war stops in Ukraine, are going to feel let down. All these arms and everything that they've donated. He's called the Ukrainian leader a dictator. I'm sorry, but I think he needs to look at himself before he starts calling anyone else a dictator. He's going on with these terrorists and everything like that. He wants Europe to increase its funding of NATO, which I don't agree with. I don't disagree with. I must admit, for too many years, our politicians have whittled away at the British forces to the point that if something like the Falklands was to happen again, I don't think we could sustain it. So, like I say, the UN, my dealings with them, I mean, my mate Lionel, I met Lionel when I was working for Metal Toledo. It turns out both of us were in Sarajevo at the same time in the same building, but never met up. And I'll never forget the day that the marketplace in Sarajevo got bombed. And then 3 days after that, the road outside the building of TV2 where we were housed got mortared. I was actually on the tank park at the front that day. I heard the incoming, I got myself down underneath a 432 and hoped for the best. But the rounds came in and mortared the road, literally no more than about 200, 250 yards from the building. the toilet block outside TV2 and the shower block were like portaloos and that, and you used to have to take your tin hat and your flat jacket out to go and sit on a carsy, yeah, because the gits across the road used to take pot shots at you. I'll never forget, I was sat in the on the loo, and suddenly there was a report, looked up, and there's a hole in the portaloo up in the top of the corner. Yeah, they're taking a pot shot at my one. So it doesn't matter that you're wearing a blue beret and you're supposed to be peacekeeping, yeah. These people will take a shot at you, no matter what. If it means that they feel they're gonna get an advantage, they will do it. And with the Russian forces, yeah, they've already said that they want no NATO forces involved, yeah, in a peacekeeping force. So what do we do then? Do we start involving people like Australia? I know the Australian Prime Minister has said that he may look at sending guys out to do peacekeeping. Yeah, so it could be a case we're looking at Asian countries and Australia and places like that to provide the peacekeeping force. If that happens, I really do feel sorry for those guys. Yeah, because again, they're being dragged into a war that is so far away from them, it's not going to affect them at all. Whereas with Europe, it's on our doorstep. So what do we do? I don't know. Be interested to find out your views on it. But like I say, I've done, that'll be 4 tours now under the UN, and each time it's been totally ineffective. And so, if it's going to be a peacekeeping tour, surely it's got to be under the NATO flag. But if we do that, we're then sort of antagonising Mr. Putin. So what happens then? World War III? Got to be aware of it, guys. That's the thing. That's why I say, let's bolster our shores first. Make sure that if we need to defend this country, we can do it. Okay, well, I've rattled on for about half an hour now on this. Really sorry, but it's something that I felt that needed to be said. Like I say, my first UN tour, Sunshine Tour. Yeah, got away with it. Got a medal for doing nothing, basically. I was out there jumping out of planes all day. Funnily enough, myself and a guy called Mick Ellingworth from the Royal Corps of Transport, who ended up on the staff at Pergamos Camp, we were the first 2 United Nations soldiers to do a parachute display displaying the UN flag over Cyprus. And I've still got pictures of that. But yeah, we had a great time out there. Bosnia is one of the reasons I now have post-traumatic stress. Some of the things that we witnessed out there, some of the stuff that we saw, yeah, causes us issues. And again, we were supposed to be peacekeeping. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you all have a wonderful day. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Not telling you to do it, just asking you to consider it. I've now gone through 500 subscribers on my channel, and I've got to say a big thank you to my mate Keith, Let's Tab 59, for helping me to get to this stage, because it was Keith that actually got people to start looking at my channel and subscribing. Like I say, it's a bit of a crappy day out here today, so I'm just going to have a quick tab out down to the reservoir and then head on home and get my chores done. So to all of you out there, please take care of yourselves, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see some comments on this post. If you're new to the channel and you subscribe, please drop me a little comment as well, because you'll get a reply. I like to reply to people that have taken the time out to listen to this whole I'll get waffling. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. And as Keith says, let's tab.